Okay, now, as I map out this past for back pain, um, there was one point where a doctor who knew that I had been seeing a therapist was convinced that this was all a result of basically unconscious anxiety. She encouraged me to go see a psychiatrist, and I didn't, and, and that really didn't make sense. The whole concept of the unconscious really didn't make sense. Um, but I can definitely say in the 2 or 3 years that have followed that, as I have met with a psychiatrist and have tried different anxiety medications and times when I've had a lot of anxiety, um, that there definitely is a psychological component to it. Definitely, when I have more anxiety, things are worse. And I think if I've ever had moments where I've had a huge release of emotion, whether it be through crying or tears or something, which doesn't happen very often, um, my back just rests. So, I think in this video, I would really like to raise the question, in addition to all the other questions that I've raised, that I would like to raise the question of whether this might be um, a major psychological component to the pain, that the body is a result. The body and the mind, I mean, it feeds off of each other. I've thought, I can rethink the past in terms of leg length difference and how different injuries throughout time and not stretching it created this situation where my back constantly adjusted, and then I reached a threshold about 4 years ago, and that's when the pain became chronic, and the leg length difference totally made it worse, and that may have been the primary cause, and so I've had the leg length difference taken care of, and my back gets better for like a year, almost 100% better, and now I'm back again, starting to have symptoms like I did 4 years ago. And so, I leave that on in addition to that, I want to throw on the table this whole psychological component. And I think when I look at my past, and I think about the emotional trauma that I experienced over the last 4 years, decisions that I've made, and where I recognize it, even for me now to just even think about it all, it, it gets me so pissed off and so angry. Um, I think that it would be wise to say that there probably is another component to this. And I don't know much more to say about that. Like, was, I grew up in a Mormon family. Um, my parents divorced, and so I guess you could say I reacted to that. For me, I trusted the the, the Mormon ideal, and I strived for it. And for like 10 years, the prehistory of this back pain is definitely the prehistory of the pre-emotional history of the back pain is a very serious Mormon investment. 10 years serving a LDS mission, and coming home and really after just so much effort, really just not being able to live up to the ideal and to reach it. And I think that the moment really when the back pain happened was the moment when I probably had in the palm of my hands like the closest of reaching everything that I wanted to reach, and really seeing how unprepared I was for that, and really and throughout this process really realizing that what I was what was Mormonism for me really was a mess. And I don't think this is necessarily signifies everyone that's Mormon, but what I was obedient to, which is very traditional Mormonism, it when that kind of unwound in this experience of not being able to reach it, the trauma there. I mean, there's been lots of traumatic moments. I think um, since my parents' divorce, which weren't consciously related. I think now I can see the relationship, but um, it's unfortunate that it's people like me who really get, I guess you could say, just beat up within tradition, really just slammed around and destroyed a little bit by it. Um, that really are probably the ones that cause it to change and evolve. I think if it wasn't for me, it would just be protecting tradition forever. But anyways, I think realizing that, watching that just kind of fall apart, and really watching, and then seeing tradition in a more broader perspective. Like now, when I think about my experience in Mormonism, it's contingent on the prehistory before Mormonism. Like the things that I learned in school totally aided my acquisition of the assumptions that allowed me to think that my emotions were being authored by someone beyond myself. Uh, my public education totally aided this, and so now it's I think when I reflect, you know, really trying to write to a point where I know that I'm productive within tradition and having this new high standard that I'm trying to reach, it does create a lot of turmoil especially with all this prehistory that kind of aids the desire to continue going in that direction. And so there's that component of it all that it really underlies the physical pain that I feel. And but what can you do with the very objective things like a clicking in the hip and tightening when the muscle just physically tightens in the back? And I on days when I feel pretty great, it would have to be extremely unconscious um, anxieties, as this one person said. This one doctor, or not a doctor, but a doctor helper lady. But anyways, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next months and years. And there's one other point that in the last 30 seconds, there was one point about 3 years ago where I really thought God was going to help me like fix this back, and I basically woke up and realized that if anyone's going to help me, it's not going to be God. It's going to be me through my research, through my creating the horizon that meaningful synchronicities can happen. And if I didn't realize that, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere fixing this.